Hey you guys, it's me, Brittany here, with my co-host, Miss Trinity. So this video is going to be her 1 week update. She turned 1 week old yesterday. So I'll just fill you guys in on everything that transpired from the hospital up through now. So she was born last Monday, March 12th, and she was 5 pounds, 14 ounces, and she was 20 inches long. And something that they noted during the first 24 hours, she had actually gained an ounce, which they said that was rare. So at birth, she received the vitamin K and the eye ointment and everything. Um, she's a decent weight, but since I went all the way to 40 weeks and she was just right under 6 pounds, they wanted to monitor her sugar for the first 24 hours. So that required her foot getting pricked every day while we were in the hospital, and they were also checking for I think it's called the bilirubin, what they check as far as to see if they have jaundice. So she was kind of getting pricked for that, and her sugar levels, like, they went up like they should. They just want to make sure she was being nourished and receiving what she needed. She passed the meconium like just right at about the 24-hour mark, and that came in the form of like 3 valve movements. While I was there, I had to track the feedings and the wet and dirty diapers. I kind of had a miscommunication with this because I also was tracking how often I was eating and drinking, and they also had me measuring how much I was peeing. And the nurse, after 24 hours, the nurse told me I could stop, and I thought that included for baby as well. So I had missed a few of the things I was supposed to note. Um, we had her newborn photos done on Tuesday when she was 1 day old, and they came out really cute. I put a few of those in the labor and delivery video. So they have a portrait studio there, and then they have what they consider photojournalism style, and they just come into the room and take photos of the baby. She also on that day received her hepatitis B vaccine, and she passed her hearing, and I think the APGAR things right at birth were like around 8 or 9. So she just did, excuse me, beautifully in the hospital. Um, while I was in the hospital, the pediatrician, she came out each day, and at the office that I selected is 2 different pediatricians. It's one that I prefer over the other. The one who came out is the one who has hospital privileges. So she's okay. I just prefer the other one. I was getting kind of annoyed because pretty much from day one, she was already asking about my milk. And it's like, you usually don't get your milk in until like the 3rd or 4th day. And I just feel like as a medical professional, you should know that. So each day she came out, she was asking about my milk, which I thought that would have been fine, when we were closer to, the 3rd day or whatever, but just to be asking that initially. So she had mentioned in the hospital possibly supplementing with formula because she didn't want her to lose too much weight since she was already small. So when we were discharged, she was 5 pounds and 10 ounces. So she just lost 4 ounces while we were there. The doctor told me that she wanted her to come in on Thursday at 3 days old. Excuse me, for her to be checked and everything. So when she was weighed, she was 5 pounds 9 ounces. So at the visit, the doctor wanted me to go ahead and breastfeed her and have her weighed again, so she was the same. She didn't really nurse that long though while I was doing it. And then she wanted me to just go ahead and give her formula, which I really didn't want to do. So it was the Infamil newborn, and it was the ready-made bottle, and it was she took about an ounce of it, which the doctor thought that was good because she wanted her to take between a ½ ounce and an ounce. So she told me, until my milk, because at that point that was day 3 for us, so I still just had the colostrum. My milk hadn't come in yet, so she wanted me to give her about an ounce of formula every 2 hours, but to still keep her on the breast a few minutes so that she would still be accustomed with breastfeeding. So she took about an ounce while we were home when it was time for me to give it to her, and I offered it to her 2 other times and she didn't really take it. My breast had started to leak, so I could tell my milk was coming in. So I think that's why she refused like the other two. She was just sucking on the nipples. She didn't really drink it. So I think because my milk had came in, she was getting enough with that. So they wanted me to come in for a recheck that Friday on day 4. And when I did that, I got to meet with the other pediatrician, the one who I prefer. So now I have learned that I just have to request whichever pediatrician I want before I schedule the appointments. So anyway, she was 5'11", 5 pounds 11 ounces. So she had gained 2 ounces within the 24-hour period, which was very good. The pediatrician said usually babies gain a ½ ounce to an ounce each day. So just with talking to her, she was just so thorough. She just, it seemed like she felt bad that I had given her formula. She was saying she didn't understand why the other doctor had suggested that. She was saying that 4 ounces is not a lot for a baby to lose, and you know, long as she was still hydrating and stuff. I believe the other doctor's concern was once we had been home, she hadn't had a bowel movement yet. And what the pediatrician was saying, the one that I saw on Friday, she was saying that, you know, that's not really, you know, abnormal with breastfed baby. And during the time that she was on the formula, she had like 4 really like loose, weird bowel movements within, you know, a short amount of time. Like I thought she had diarrhea or something. So just, you know, when I went in to see the other doctor, she just kept saying she wished I hadn't, you know, given her formula because she felt that she was fine. So as she was examining her, she was looking at her mouth, and I really don't remember the first pediatrician looking at her mouth at all. I'm not going to say that she didn't because I wasn't thoroughly looking while I was at the hospital, but I know when I saw her the day prior, she hadn't done that. So this doctor, she was looking at her tongue, and she was thinking that she possibly was tongue-tied, which that can affect breastfeeding. So her tongue did come down to her lower lip, so she said that it might not be a concern, but she said she'd rather for us to be safe than sorry. And then with what I've heard from about tongue ties, I know it could be an issue in the future because it could affect with speech. So she was like, you know, I can refer you to a pediatric ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor. So she was just really diligent about it. She called like 3 different doctors. We already were at her office at like 1 o'clock that afternoon, and she found a place that was open on a Friday, and we were actually able to go the same day because she, you know, she said if it was an issue with a tongue tied, it's just a real quick procedure, and she said there was no need to linger into the weekend. So we went there, and everything checked out. She was fine. Her tongue was fine, everything. So it was just good to be reassured that she was okay with that. And plus, the tools that they had out, it just looked really scary to be putting in her mouth. And I just felt like we had already been torturing her every day with, you know, she at that point she hadn't had a break either. She's getting poked, you know, getting checked for blood, and they had drawn some blood when I first went to the pediatrician's office, and the nurse was like, oh, she has really good skin, and she poked her like 3 times, and I'm just, you know, was a little annoyed with that. I felt like she could have got what she needed with the first poke. So anyway, I asked on Friday before we left to go to the ENT, I asked the pediatrician, you know, could I just come in and weigh her because they are open on Saturdays for a few hours, and she said that would be fine. And she was saying, you know, it's just hard to tell sometimes. Well, breastfeeding, you don't know unless you're pumping, you don't know how much you're giving the baby. So I went in on Saturday, which ended up turning into an appointment. But she was 5 pounds, 12 ounces, so she was like almost back to her birth weight. And the doctor said that she didn't have any concerns um, with her gaining weight, and just said that she really felt she'd be up to her weight fairly quickly. While we were there, I did mention to her that once again, we were having the bowel movement issues. She was having plenty of wet diapers. So I knew she wasn't like dehydrated, but I'm like, what's going on with her bowels or whatever. But it hadn't been anything where, she seemed uncomfortable, like she was constipated or anything. But I just went to check with the doctor. So she said she wasn't really concerned, and she felt like the formula was contributing to that issue, because she said once you give like a baby, a breastfed baby formula, like that formula just, formula just kind of sits around anyway. And she said breast milk kind of has that natural laxative, and she's like, probably until she gets enough breast milk, that's what's going to help get the bowel movement out. So at that point, that was Saturday. So she said, I asked her at what point should I be concerned, if she hadn't had a bowel movement. So she really told me if she hadn't had one by Monday or Tuesday, then that's when to call her. She said she just wasn't concerned, and she felt that the formula is what was causing that. So she did mention we could try rectal stimulation, because she said sometimes the bowel is kind of down there. This baby doesn't really know that they need to go. So she was explaining to my husband and I how to do it with the thermometer. And I'm just looking at her like, I don't want to stick anything in her little rectum area. And so she's like, do you want me to do it? So we're like, yeah. So you could kind of see she kind of had a bowel, it just wasn't coming out. So she did that or whatever. And she ended up having two bowel movements within that, like a 12-hour period or whatever. So that rectal stimulation did help, because what she was going to suggest after that was like the suppository that they give to like preemies or whatever. So I'm glad that that worked for her. So, okay, and then Sunday, 6 days old, um, that's when I was freaking out because I saw this blood like on her shirt or whatever. So I'm like, what's going on? So she was having some bleeding from her umbilical cord, like the stump area. So I'm like looking online with what to do, because I always thought and had always heard that you put alcohol in the umbilical cord. And ever since I've had this baby, the nurses and the doctors have been like, oh, just keep it clean and dry, don't put anything on it. So I hadn't been putting alcohol on it. So, I was trying to see, since she kind of had like some dried blood around that area, I was trying to see, do I just clean it with water? Do I clean it with alcohol or whatever? Um, so my husband and I, we decided to put alcohol on it. So just, it hasn't been as bad since then. But I did read online that sometimes it bleeds right before it's about to fall off, and I can see how it's just drying out more and more. So, I know other things they say is to check for fever and to see if it's pink. If the area around the navel is really pink or whatever, that could be a sign of infection. And then it wasn't like actively bleeding, like it wasn't like we wiped it and it just started bleeding again. So I think she's fine, and I spoke with a nurse today, and yeah, she just advised to use the alcohol, but just once a day. Like I didn't need to be putting it on with each diaper change. So yeah, that was that. Um, just other things with her. Um, I think I had mentioned I had purchased a pack and play, but the one that has the bassinet at the top. We just wanted to be able to have her in the room initially, and I just think the bassinet part isn't comfortable for her. It's been sometimes she lays in it a little while during the day, but at night I can't keep her in it. And it was getting to a point the first few nights just kind of having her in the bed with me, close to me, just kind of laid her on the boppy pillow, but kind of had it like towards my chest or whatever. Um, She had been fine in the crib during the day. It's just we hadn't put her in the crib at night yet because we were having issues with the whole angel care monitor thing because we kept getting all these false alarms, which I read excellent reviews on the product, but the bad reviews I read, that's what people were saying. So it really sounds off really loud, and I just didn't want it waking her up and stuff. So we have adjusted the sensitivity level. It's like almost on the lowest one. But did put her in the crib last night, and she did really well. She just only, cried when she was hungry. So last night was the most sleep that I've gotten since I've been home. And I would say with her swing, she's enjoying the swing. Sometimes I have her in there in the morning and she'll just sleep a couple hours. She's eating like every 2 to 3 hours. And I guess the last thing I just wanted to mention was I had an application. Well, I still have it, like on my iPad, to be tracking the feedings and the diaper changes and stuff. And because I had a friend today asking me if I was tracking it, I told her about the app, and I told her I did it like my first day and a half home, but I've already stopped doing it. I'm already like over it. So I guess mentally I'm kind of tracking, okay, she's had X amount of wet diapers, and I'm aware that I'm feeding her, every 2 to 3 hours. So, but if any of y'all are interested in the app, WebMD Baby has one, and I think I like that app better. But it just has different features on there, and you're able to track different things with growth as well. And it'll tell you the percentile that your child is in. So I like that app. Um, I mean, because it has other features than the tracking options. And then the other one that was more so with the tracking, Similac has one. I think it's called Similac Baby Journal. So if you guys are interested in having apps like for your iPhone or your iPad, those are available. So that's pretty much it. Sorry I was like drawn out, but I was just trying to tell you all the details. So she's sleeping, but I'll show her to you guys. Oh, she's waving. So thanks for watching. I'll be doing a postpartum update video as well. Okay, see you guys later.